As the genial October morning light filtered through the entrance, Celeste quietly removed her shoes. Her steps were heavy after a night shift as a physical therapist, 12 hours of demanding work seeping fatigue into every fiber of her being. Yet the pride she felt in supporting her patient's recovery sustained her weary spirit. As she entered the foyer, a small disquiet brushed against her chest. Her father Montgomery's leather shoes were positioned differently than usual. Normally arranged neatly with toes pointing inward, this morning they faced outward, as if ready for immediate departure. "Good morning, Mom," Celeste called cheerfully. Vivian's face, appearing from the kitchen, froze momentarily. "Oh, you're back." The response carried the distant tone of someone greeting an unexpected visitor. "Another night shift?" Usually, her mother would offer words of comfort, "You must be tired," but this morning brought only bureaucratic inquiry. Celeste tilted her head, wondering if her own exhaustion was creating false impressions. "Would you like to have breakfast together?" "You haven't eaten yet, have you?" "We've already finished," Vivian replied without turning around. "Besides, I'm busy right now." Her words carried not maternal concern, but the focus of someone absorbed in other plans. Moving toward the living room, Celeste found her father Montgomery seated at the table. Before him lay unfamiliar items, glossy, beautiful photographs of luxury cruise ships. Cruise travel brochures. "Good morning, Dad." "What are you looking at?" "Ah, Celeste." Her father showed signs of haste, overlapping and concealing part of the brochures. "Just dreaming a little about retirement." Celeste caught a glimpse of his hands. From the hidden brochure's edge, luxurious text peeked out, "Premium Suite, 7-day Caribbean Cruise." How lovely. Cruise travel. "Well, it's just a dream," Montgomery smiled vaguely. Yet there was somewhere deep in that smile, something unknown to Celeste. A calculator sat at the table's edge, beside it a memo in her father's handwriting. Visible were the figures, CRI 7 days, $4,300 times 2. For a dream, the calculation seemed remarkably concrete. "Quite an expensive trip," Celeste remarked casually. Her parents exchanged a glance for just an instant. That moment of silence felt strangely heavy. "Money concerns are ours to handle," Vivian said with slight force. "It's not something for you to worry about." The words surprised Celeste. She supported most of the household expenses with her monthly income of $2,800, yet was being treated like an outsider. "But if it's about household finances, I'd like to help plan." "You don't need to." Vivian's response came immediately, as if it were a pre-prepared answer. "We have our own plans." That evening, as Celeste prepared for work, she reflected on the morning's conversation. Her parents' behavior seemed different, as if they were hiding something. Passing through the living room, she heard her parents speaking in hushed tones. "Are you really sure about this?" her mother said anxiously. "There's no problem. We've prepared everything," her father replied confidently. "But what if?" "Don't worry. Everything's going according to the plan." Celeste stopped. Plan? For a cruise vacation, why such secretive discussion? The morning after returning from her night shift, Celeste habitually opened her banking app. Checking account balances was part of managing household finances. She couldn't believe the numbers on her screen. It was $5,000 less than yesterday. The transaction history showed a cash withdrawal at 3 p.m. the previous day. At that time, she had been at work. Her cash card remained in her wallet. Only her parents knew the PIN. Heart pounding, Celeste headed to the living room. The cruise brochures were spread out as before, but now accompanied by a travel agency's booking application, already filled out. "Dad, Mom," Celeste called with a trembling voice. "Yesterday, $5,000 was withdrawn from my account." Her parents' faces tensed momentarily, something Celeste didn't miss. "Ah, that was..." Montgomery stammered. "For the cruise deposit, we needed it urgently." "But why didn't you discuss it with me?" "There wasn't time to consult you," Vivian interrupted. "The application deadline was approaching. We'll pay it back later." But Celeste couldn't accept it. Such a large sum, $5,000, was used without her permission. A cruise trip was decided without any discussion. "When are you planning to depart?" "Next week," Vivian answered matter-of-factly. "We'll be away for 7 days. That's quite sudden." "It's our life, so we don't need to report every detail, do we?" Those cold words pierced deep into Celeste's heart. For 10 years, she had sacrificed everything for her family. She had given up marrying her fiancé and postponed her own dreams, all to support her parents. That night, lying in her room, Celeste contemplated the accumulating inconsistencies. The repositioned shoes, the distant greeting, the hidden brochures, the secretive conversations, the unauthorized withdrawal. Through the thin walls, she heard her parents' hushed voices again. "Just a little bit more. Yes, next week it will all be over. Once that child is gone." Celeste's blood ran cold. Once that child is gone. Could they possibly be referring to her? Deep anxiety engulfed her heart. As if something was moving beyond her knowledge. And that something felt decidedly unwelcome. The next morning, returning from her night shift, Celeste found 2 large suitcases lined up in the entrance. They bore the seals of recent purchase and luxury brand tags. "New suitcases?" Celeste inquired, and Vivian turned around. "For the cruise. We are leaving tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" Celeste was shocked. "So suddenly?" "We decided this long ago," Montgomery said while descending the stairs. "Since it doesn't concern you, we simply didn't bother mentioning it." The coldness of those words wounded Celeste's heart. She couldn't understand why, as family, she was told something doesn't concern her. "But are you okay, financially? Cruises are quite expensive, aren't they?" Her parents exchanged glances again. That moment of silence thickened the room's atmosphere. "You don't need to worry about it," Vivian said definitively. "We have our own plans." "Plans?" "Well, there's no need for to spell out everything, don't we?" Montgomery interjected. "We're adults, so we decide our own affairs." Celeste couldn't shake her unease. Previously, she was often consulted about household finances, but now she was completely excluded. That evening, Celeste consulted her colleague Jade at work. "My parents have been acting strange lately." "In what way?" Jade asked with concern. "They suddenly decided on a cruise trip and say they're leaving tomorrow. But when I asked about money, they wouldn't tell me, saying it doesn't concern me." Jade's expression darkened. "That sounds odd. You're the one supporting the household finances." "That's what I thought as well. Plus, my money was withdrawn from my account without permission." "That's suspicious." Jade became serious. "You should investigate properly." Returning home, Celeste found her parents making final travel preparations in the living room. On the table lay an itinerary, passports, and unfamiliar documents. "What are these documents?" Celeste asked, and Montgomery hastily covered the papers. "Travel insurance," Vivian quickly answered. "Just in case." However, the documents Celeste glimpsed didn't appear to be travel insurance. She thought she saw the words, life insurance. "Should I get insurance too?" "You're young, so you don't need it." Vivian's response came too quickly. It was like an answer she had prepared ahead of time. That night, when Celeste checked her banking app, there was another withdrawal record. This time $3,000. It was withdrawn the previous day, when she had been at work. a total of $8,000. Even for cruise travel expenses, it was excessively high. The next morning, her parents began departure preparations. A taxi was scheduled to pick them up. "Have a good trip," Celeste said as she attempted to see them off. Vivian turned around and hastily said, "You have work, don't you? You don't have to say goodbye." "But..." "Don't worry. We're adults," Montgomery also said coldly. "We'll be back in about a week. Won't you keep in touch? We'll contact you when necessary." Celeste was bewildered. She felt completely excluded from the supposed family trip. Celeste then drove to work that afternoon. When she stopped at a traffic light, she noticed the brake pedal felt different than usual. Slightly heavier. But she just got her car checked by her mechanic last month. She decided not to pay much attention to it. In the evening, as she finished work and was heading to the parking lot, she found a man examining her car. He wore work clothes, appearing to be some kind of a contractor. "Excuse me, can I help you?" When Celeste called out, the man turned around. "Ah, are you the owner of this car? I was asked to check on your car." "Who asked you?" The man looked troubled. "One of your family members." "My family? But no one mentioned anything like that to me." "Oh, is that so?" The man began hastily gathering his tools. "It might have been a misunderstanding. My apologies." The man hurried away. Left behind, Celeste was filled with bewilderment. When she came home, the house was completely silent. Her parents had already left. Celeste saw a memo on the dining table. "There's 1 week's worth of food in the refrigerator. We've also given our emergency contact information to the hospital. Don't worry." Reading that memo, Celeste was struck by a strange sensation. There was a week's worth of food prepared in advance. It was as if her parents anticipated she wouldn't be able to go out. Opening the refrigerator, massive quantities of food were indeed crammed inside. Frozen foods, instant meals, even bread. It was enough even for when a disaster strikes. Why so much food? That night, alone in the house, Celeste reflected on the day's events. The mysterious man in the parking lot, an enormous amount of food, the cold farewell. Everything scattered in her mind like unconnected puzzle pieces. Suddenly, she remembered the documents in her father's study. She thought she had seen the words, "life insurance." As she entered the study, she saw several documents still on the desk. Among them was a notice from an insurance company. Notice of beneficiary change. The beneficiary of a life insurance policy contracted under Celeste's name had been changed to her parents. Moreover, the procedure date was the previous day. She had been told nothing. Her hands trembled. Why had they changed the beneficiary without her knowledge? And why at this timing? Taking her mobile phone, she called her parents. But there was no response. Even messages she sent remained unread. Even past midnight, her anxiety wouldn't subside. Question marks, inexplicable actions, and decisions made without her knowledge. The terror that something crucial to her life was moving beyond her awareness dominated Celeste's heart. 3 days had passed since her parents' departure. Celeste hadn't been able to contact them once. Messages remained unread, calls wouldn't connect. As if they were intentionally ignoring her. That morning, Celeste was driving to work. Waiting at an intersection as usual, the light turned green. She pressed the accelerator and slowly began moving forward. But when the next signal turned red, something went wrong. When she pressed the brake pedal, the car wouldn't stop. What? Celeste frantically pressed the pedal harder. However, the pedal sank to the floor with no resistance whatsoever. The car continued moving toward the intersection. "Stop. Please." Desperately turning the wheel right, she crashed the car into the sidewalk planters. Her car's window glass shattered and the car metal groaned. Then her consciousness faded. "You're awake," a nurse said gently. "We contacted your parents, but they said they're on a cruise trip and would continue the trip as planned." Those words left deep wounds in Celeste's heart. When their daughter nearly died in an accident, they prioritized their vacation. Was this family love? The next day, a police officer visited her hospital room. An elderly detective sat down with a grave expression. "Ms. Harper, after our forensics team examined your car, we found deliberate damage to the brake fluid hose. It was extremely skillfully rigged to gradually leak fluid over time." Celeste's world crumbled. "Meaning, someone did this intentionally?" "Yes. We're opening an attempted murder investigation." At that moment, her neighbor Beatrice entered looking concerned. The retired teacher changed her expression upon noticing the police officer. "Actually, the Harper household has been acting strange for months," Beatrice began. "Montgomery was going to casinos late at night, and men who looked like debt collectors visited the house repeatedly. I heard voices saying $200,000 and by the end of this month." Celeste gasped. Her parents were $200,000 in debt? And Beatrice took out her smartphone. "Last month, I accidentally recorded your parents' conversation." The audio played. $200,000 in debt. "What are we going to do?" Vivian said frantically. "Don't worry. Celeste's life insurance is worth $750,000. We'll still have plenty left even after paying off the debt," Montgomery explained calmly. "But how would we get the insurance money?" "Make it look like a car accident. Rig the brakes, and we'll have an alibi on the cruise ship. We'll gather sympathy as the tragic parents who lost their beloved daughter. Won't the insurance company be suspicious? Our daughter drives the same route every day. They'll process it as a traffic accident due to fatigue. We just need to play the role of a shocked, grieving parents." When the recording ended, the hospital room was enveloped in heavy silence. Celeste was trembling. The parents to whom she had devoted everything for 10 years had tried to kill her. Why? "I worked so hard for my family," Beatrice gently explained. "Though you gave them $2,800 monthly, your parents were spending over $8,000 per month. Luxury restaurants, designer goods, first-class travel. Even as gambling and stock investment failures mounted debt, they couldn't abandon their extravagant lifestyle. Then the bank called. Ms. Harper, $50,000 was withdrawn from your account yesterday. Your father explained that you are in a coma and need an experimental treatment." Even while she was hospitalized from the accident, her parents had lied to withdraw money. Meanwhile, on the Caribbean cruise ship, her parents were telling other passengers about their daughter's tragedy. "Our beloved daughter had a car accident," Vivian performed tearfully. "It's such a difficult time, but our daughter had said she wanted her parents to enjoy their cruise trip." Montgomery continued the act. The passengers showed deep sympathy and special consideration toward them. However, an emergency communication from the ship's captain changed everything dramatically. "Mr. and Mrs. Harper, you're under arrest for attempted murder." Their faces turned pale, and the truth that the tragic parents were actually attempted murderers spread throughout the ship. Celeste came to understand everything at the hospital. Her parents' gambling addiction, enormous debt, and the callousness of choosing money over their own daughter's life. 10 years of devotion and love had all been exploited, ultimately viewing her as a tool that should die and leave insurance money. Alongside deep sadness, new resolve sprouted. Never again would she become a sacrifice to someone else's desires. Understanding that true family is bound by love, not blood, hope began to shine into Celeste's heart. 1 week after her parents' arrest, Celeste was discharged from the hospital. Though a cast remained on her left arm, her heart felt surprisingly light. The burden she had carried for 10 years was finally lifted. First, she headed to her workplace. Her colleague Jade welcomed her warmly. "Celeste, it must have been truly terrible. You're such a strong woman." "Thank you, Jade. Actually, I have a favor to ask you," Celeste continued with a serious expression. "I want to start a new life. I want to live truly as myself, no longer cowering in my parents' shadow. Of course, I'll help with anything. First, could you help me find a new apartment? I don't want to return to that house anymore." The next day, they found an ideal one-bedroom apartment. A bright kitchen, sunlight streaming through large windows, and above all, a clean space free from past burdens. "It seems like you can make a fresh start here," Jade smiled. "I really think so. For the first time, I'll have my own space." While proceeding with the lease agreement, Celeste visited the bank. Important procedures remained. "Ms. Harper, regarding your parents' arrest, we need to discuss the processing of the joint accounts," the bank officer explained. "What do you mean?" "The situation of your parents' debts is complex due to the joint accounts. However, for the actual household expenses you paid, including the mortgage and utilities, it may be possible for us to claim partial reimbursement for you. Also, if your family house is sold, it may yield some remaining funds after the outstanding debts are deducted from its sale." Celeste was surprised, having expected a much harsher financial situation. "Please sell the house," Celeste answered decisively. "I have no attachment to it anymore." Meanwhile, at the detention center, her parents were speaking with a lawyer in the visiting room. "The situation is severe," the lawyer stated frankly. "Attempted murder, fraud, embezzlement, multiple felonies. Moreover, there's testimony from the cruise ship and recorded evidence. If our daughter would forgive us," Vivian said desperately. "Ms. Harper, your daughter is the victim. You attempted to take her life. You shouldn't expect any leniency." Montgomery asked with a trembling voice, "What would the sentence be?" "I think you should brace yourselves for at least 15 years of imprisonment." A week later, Celeste welcomed her first morning in the new apartment. Sunlight streaming through the windows seemed to bless the beginning of her new life. That day, an unexpected visitor came. He was an officer from the detention center relaying a visitation request. "My parents are requesting a meeting?" Celeste confirmed with the officer. "Yes. They say they want to apologize to their daughter, but..." Celeste answered without hesitation. "I decline. I have no relationship with them anymore." However, the next day, a lawyer contacted her. "Ms. Harper, a letter has arrived from your parents. Will you read it?" "What's the content?" "It appears to be an apology and a request for family reconciliation." After thinking briefly, Celeste answered, "I'll read it once." The letter's content was as expected. Words shifting blame and seeking sympathy. "We made poor judgment due to financial troubles. Please forgive us because we're family." Celeste placed the letter on her desk and took a deep breath. Then she began writing a reply. "To Dad and Mom. For 10 years, I loved and supported you continuously. However, you tried to kill me. This isn't merely a poor judgment call. It was premeditated attempted murder. Family means loving and supporting each other. You used me as a cash cow and ultimately viewed me as a tool that should die and leave insurance money. I no longer consider you family. My new family consists of people who truly love and support me. Never contact me again. Disappear completely from my life. Celeste." As she placed the letter in an envelope, Celeste felt surprisingly refreshed. That weekend, Jade and colleagues gathered for a housewarming celebration. "This is real family," Jade said while pouring wine. "Not blood relations, but chosen family." "I think so too," Celeste smiled. "Heart connections are far more important than blood ties." Marcus, a fellow physical therapist, led a toast. To Celeste's new life. And to true freedom. The sound of clinking glasses echoed through the new apartment. That night, alone, Celeste stood by the window gazing at the city's nightscape. She remembered the day 10 years ago when she broke her engagement due to her father's illness, dedicating everything to family. At the time, she thought it was the right choice. But now, having known the truth, that devotion wasn't appreciated, it was taken as natural obligation, ultimately expecting a more valuable death. "But it's over now," Celeste told herself. "My life is mine. I'm no one's property." A new message arrived on her smartphone. It was from David, a doctor she'd recently met at the hospital where she worked as a physical therapist. "How's the new apartment? Would you like to have dinner together sometime?" Celeste smiled as she typed her reply. "Absolutely. Let's celebrate the beginning of my new life." Far away in the detention center, her parents were reading Celeste's rejection letter. But it was too late. The time had come to reap what they had sown. Celeste's new life was beginning, quietly but surely. 3 months after her parents' arrest, the trial day finally arrived. Celeste took her favorite navy blazer from her new apartment's closet. She had recently purchased it as a treat for herself. The joy of spending money solely for herself after 10 years was extraordinary. Standing before the mirror, her expression glowed like a different person from 3 months ago. Color had returned to her cheeks, and her eyes held the light of strong will. She had started morning yoga, attended cooking classes with Jade on weekends, and revived her long-dormant love of reading. "Ready?" Jade came to pick her up. More than ready, Celeste smiled with confidence. "Today will be one of the most important days of my life." The courtroom was packed. As the attempted murder case of parents targeting their daughter's insurance money, it had gained national news attention. Celeste entered boldly, waving slightly to her supporters. The prosecutor began opening statements. "This is an extremely callous attempted murder case, disguised as family love. The defendants exploited their daughter's 10 years of devotion, ultimately plotting to exchange her life for money." Decisive evidence was presented one after another. Her car's brakes forensics results, Beatrice's recording, cruise ship testimony. Particularly shocking was testimony from other cruise passengers. The defendants were celebrating their daughter's accidental death, testified a female passenger in her 50s. Poolside, they said it's $750,000 insurance money, means secure retirement, and finally we'll be free. It was like a celebration. Murmurs arose in the courtroom. Angry voices were heard from the gallery. Next, Beatrice took the witness stand. Her testimony was precise, revealing the parents' abnormal behavior patterns chronologically. Celeste was an angelic daughter. However, her parents saw her only as a cash cow. And ultimately, they treated her as a tool that should die and leave insurance money. Finally, Celeste's turn to testify arrived. She straightened her back and began speaking in a calm voice. 10 years ago, when my father became ill, I decided to dedicate my entire life to family. I believed it was right. Celeste's voice was clear, without hesitation. I supported monthly living expenses, medical costs, everything. I sacrificed my dreams, romance, friendships. However, they considered my love and devotion their natural right. She paused to breathe and look toward her parents. And ultimately, they judged money more valuable than my life. This isn't love. This is control and exploitation." Quiet applause arose from the gallery. However, through this experience, I learned what's truly important. Real family isn't blood relations, but relationships of mutual respect and love. Celeste looked around at her supporters. Now I have real family. People who respect me as a person and support me. I'm no longer anyone's property. I'm living my own life. At the end, the parents were also given a chance to speak. Vivian stood up and pleaded tearfully. "Celeste, please. Forgive us. You're my daughter. We're bound by blood." But Celeste responded firmly. "Blood alone does not make a family. For 10 years, I devoted myself to you, and you never showed gratitude. In the end, you tried to kill me. That is an unforgivable betrayal. But we're family." Vivian cried. Celeste stood and declared in a voice that echoed through the courtroom. "My family is the people who stand with me now. Those who love me, respect me, and walk through life with me. I will no longer be bound by blood alone." The judge solemnly delivered the verdict. The jury finds the defendants guilty of all charges: attempted murder, fraud, and embezzlement. As for sentencing, 8 years for attempted murder, 3 years for fraud, and 2 years for embezzlement. These will be consolidated into 10 years of imprisonment. However, due to the malicious planning involved, parole will not be considered until after 7 years. A wave of relief swept through the courtroom. Celeste took a deep breath, feeling the weight on her heart fully lifted. Her parents, in handcuffs, continued to plead until the end. "Celeste, don't abandon us. Let's live together when we get out." But Celeste never looked back, walking straight out of the courtroom. Outside, the clear blue sky greeted her. Jade and her colleagues, Beatrice and David, the doctor she had recently started dating, warmly welcomed her. "It's all over now," Jade said, hugging her. "No," Celeste replied with a radiant smile. "Everything is just beginning. My real life starts now." 2 years passed. On a warm spring afternoon, Celeste saw off her last patient at her own clinic. The sign read, "Harper Rehabilitation Center," glowing in the evening light. Using her experience as a physical therapist, she had opened her own practice. "Great work today," David came to pick her up. He had proposed to her a year ago, and now they were engaged, walking through life together. Today was another fulfilling day, Celeste smiled with satisfaction. "Seeing my patients recover makes me truly happy." On the clinic walls were letters and photos from grateful patients. Celeste is now living a life where she helps others and is genuinely appreciated every day. "By the way, a letter came from your parents," David said in the car. "Again?" Celeste furrowed her brow slightly. "I've lost count of how many it's been." Her parents continued sending letters regularly. The content was always the same: apologies and pleas to rebuild their family relationship. When they got home, Celeste shredded the letter without reading it. "The past is in the past," Celeste said calmly. "Now I have people who truly matter to me." That night, a dinner gathering was held with her chosen family. Jade and her husband, Beatrice, David, and newly acquainted neighbors filled the table with laughter and warm conversation. "How's the wedding planning going for next month?" Jade asked. "Everything's going perfect," Celeste replied happily. "It's a small ceremony, but only the people who truly matter will be there, not bound by blood, but by heart." Beatrice's eyes welled up with emotion. "I'm so glad you found true happiness." Later that night, while gazing at the city lights from the balcony, Celeste thought back to herself 2 years earlier. Always trying to meet her parents' expectations, sacrificing her own life. But she now feels that every hardship has led to this moment of happiness. Do you have any regrets? David asked, standing beside her. None at all, Celeste smiled. If I had forgiven them, I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't have known true independence or real love. Looking up at the starry sky, Celeste made a vow in her heart. From now on, she will choose her own path, live her own life, unbound by anyone's expectations or blood. Even if her parents were to be released someday, Celeste will never look back. Because she now lives a life filled with true freedom and love. The white flowers on the windowsill sways gently in the night breeze, shining with hope as symbols of her new life.